I read 8 books so you don't have to wonder what's worth your time. 8 books, 90 days, 0 regrets. Each one left me wiser and inspired. Some made me cry, some made me think and change how I see success, healing, and purpose. What if one book could completely shift the way you think, the way you see your life? Let's get into it.
She got attitude.
Okay, I want to talk about a autobiography. I just happened to be in the library and I saw this book. It had just come out. It was on the new release books, but I think it came out the prior year, and it was called I Am Debra Lee. Now, for those of you who do not know, Debra Lee was the CEO of BET. She worked very closely with Bob Johnson, the founder. And listen, this book is it's a drama book. This book tell it all. I wasn't expecting it. Some of the key things she talked about, and I just could remember where I was at that time. It was just really good. This I did not get in audio form. I actually read it cover to cover. This is the book. So good. You got to go get the book. If you like autobiographies and just interested in how people's career progressed or how they got where they are, I love an autobiography. I just do. I think most of them are inspirational. I always get something out of an autobiography, just love it. So let me tell you about this book because it was, I don't even remember how many pages it was, but I'll have all that information. I'll put it up here. It's a really good book. And she talked about a few key things that I'm going to touch on. She talked about the Chris Brown Rihanna thing. Remember that whole thing where Chris Brown was accused of putting his hands on Rihanna, and we still don't know the story. We don't know because if you ask me, I think they both put their hands on each other. I just think at that time, because we was in that whole movement, he got, the bulk of it. That's just my opinion. I don't think any man should put their hands on a woman, but I also don't feel that any woman should put their hands on a man. Said it, I said it, I said it. So let's talk about this book. So the book was her account on what was going on in the whole BET debacle. And it's quite salacious. So let's talk about this one real quick and then we can move on. And maybe I will not have to do a two-part series. So she talked about her affair with Bob Johnson. Yes, she did have an affair with Bob Johnson. As a matter of fact, his wife wrote a book. It's on my list to read. I don't know if she's going to talk about what happened, but I'll be right there for her. Yes, she had an affair. But then she also talked about harassment from him, sexual harassment, abuse. Um, some of it I can understand how it went down because she played a very big role in the whole structure of BET. She was Bob's right hand woman for about 10 years before he gave her the CEO position. So she knew so much about the business. And I guess with them spending so much time together, you know how it is, they ended up doing a deal. Not once, twice, but a few times. But apparently, when she wanted to end that relationship, it got bad. She talked about them having a very complicated relationship. They were arguing more. And when she tried to end the relationship, his thing was, well, you can leave, but you're not going to leave what the COO position. You're going to have to step down. And in her mind, she felt that's the Me Too movement. You can't do that. Remember back during the Me Too movement, it was called Time's Up. That was the Hollywood phrase of Me Too movement. And this all happened during that time. So just put it out there and say what it is. If she ain't want to sleep with you no more, you can't tell her she got stepped down from her job. Not during that time, you couldn't. So she felt she was harassed. She felt she was abused. She felt that and he did, according to what I read, if everything that she said in the book is true, yes, he did definitely use his power. He used his power and his influence to get what he wanted. She called the relationship a detriment to herself, meaning it was that bad. It was just really volatile. And she wanted out, but as I stated, she could not leave without leaving BET. She could not leave the personal part of the relationship without leaving the business side of it. She had to leave BET. She worked hard. She was now, I want to say, 20 years in. She had spent so much time with this company that she wasn't about to give all that up. Well, that is when things got really, really crazy. Gotta read more about it. I'm not gonna tell you all of it, but it's definitely worth a read. She also talked about I forget what BET award show that was, but there was one where Chris Brown was supposed to be the lineup for the show. And a week after they had told him, I think it was by mouth, I don't even know if it was a contract signed, but in the book it goes into more detail. So apparently they okayed him to be on the show, but I don't think there was a contract in place. A week later was when that Rihanna thing happened, and everybody was saying, Chris needs to pay for putting his hands on Rihanna and all this old crazy stuff. She had to make an executive decision, and she knew it was going to be one that either they were going to hate her or they were going to love her. But they had moved into, when I say they, BET had moved into an era where they wanted to be respectful, they wanted to be relatable, and they wanted to elevate, the network. She had to make the executive decision to tell Chris Brown that she rescinded that offer for him to come and be the main act, I guess. Chris Brown's mom had even given her a call about it, like, my baby, this, that, and the other, he ain't do that. She still had to make that decision, but she listened to Miss Brown say her piece. She also talked about Aretha Franklin and how Aretha Franklin taught her a lot about respect, getting what she wants as a woman. From what I read, a little on the timid side. That's what I gathered. She got her strength along the way, but it did seem like she was a little timid, maybe even a little naive, but that might have just been just because she was the only woman executive during that time in that organization. And they made her feel small. I remember some of the conversations they would have, like the old boys club. I've been down that road before. That ain't fun. That old boys club, that's something. So I could relate to her when she talked about that type of the business. Aretha Franklin, she ain't play. If you wanted her to perform, you better have your cash. She ain't take no checks. She ain't take no wires. Cash. And you had to have the cash, all of it, not a portion of it, in something, and hand it over to her before she went on stage, or she just didn't. That was her motto. And because she did that, her and Debra, they were friends, and Debra learned from her what it meant to fight for what you want as a woman, because back then it was really hard. She talked about a lot of things in the book, from the beginning, her 10 years as just the structure of the company, how she met Bob, their conversations. She talked about the old boys club. She talked about how when she became COO, the different changes that they were making. She talked about a lot. It's a really good book, good memoir. I enjoyed it. But that one, I Am Debra Lee, definitely one that you should get. Put that on your list. Okay, next up was a book called The Celebrants. I'll put it up here. I also put the picture because I did get a chance to meet the author. So this particular book was part of a series that came out to Coachella author series where the author came out and he talked about his book. Because I was attending those events, I wanted to read the book, just so I can have more of a sense of the book when the author discussed certain key things that happened in the story. Stephen Rowley is the author. He is a local out here in Palm Springs. The book was good. I did it in audio form. It was sort of like The Big Chill. So, The Big Chill was about teenagers and they were sort of like forming their death while they were younger. It mimicked that, but these were older adults and they gave themselves funerals. So, were these friends that were very close. One of them passed away, and because he died so suddenly, they made a pact with one another that they would give themselves their funeral while they were still living. Initially, it started with 6. So it was 2 women and it was 4 guys. And one of their friends passed away in his 20s while they were in college. So now they're in their 40s, and this is when they made this pact because they felt that their friend that passed away never really had a chance to hear them say how they really felt about him. And this is what the book was about. I thought it was well written. I absolutely loved the stories. I loved how funny it was. I mean, hysterically, I would be laughing just for minutes on minutes because it was really well written. It captured um, happiness, sadness. It captured a lot of my emotions. I just thought it was a good book. Sometimes I like to read a feel-good book. It was a feel-good book. Very good. Highly recommend this book. I didn't really understand the title of it. And then when I got further into it and I realized they're celebrating their death while they're still living, really interesting. I love all the story plots. I thought Stephen did a really good job of bringing out the characters. I talked about this a little bit in one of my vlogs. Next book is another author series book. It was called Look For Me There. This was a book written by Luke Russert, and he wrote this book about his father. His father passed away, and the book was kind of written in a way for him to be able to deal with and process the pain of losing his father. So Luke Russert is the son of NBC longtime news reporter Tim Russert, who has passed away. He also was a host on Meet the Press. Very famous. I used to watch him. So many people watched him, loved him. He passed away from a heart attack at a very young age. He was healthy, he was fit, so it was unexpected. Luke wrote this book as a way of him being able to process the pain he was feeling, what he was going through. He felt pressured to have to fill the shoes of his father, and they were really big shoes to fill. And I know oftentimes celebrity children, they feel the need to fill their shoes because the media and the public, that's what they're looking for. I'll give you a prime example. Whitney Houston and Bobby Christina. When Whitney Houston was living, Bobby Christina felt that pressure to fit in her mother's shoes because she was Whitney Houston's daughter. How can you not sing like a bird like Whitney Houston? How can you not act or do the things that Whitney Houston do? And I think it's really sad that a lot of the media put pressure on these celebrity children to fit in the shoes of their parents. It doesn't allow them the opportunity to grow into themselves and just be themselves. And that can really cause a lot of havoc on the mental. I am like sure that that played a role in just how she lived her life and the misery and the sadness that she faced. She was not Whitney Houston. She couldn't be. This is how Luke felt. Luke felt that everybody wanted him to be Team Russert's son. And I say that in a way that Not that he wasn't. I'm saying it in a way that they didn't see him as Luke Russert. They saw him as Tim Russert's son. So he wasn't Luke, he was Tim Russert's son. And he had to deal with that. So he took a trip around the world. I think he went to, I could be wrong, but I think it was like 60 something countries trying to find himself. Now, first of all, you gotta have money to do that. And he did have a substantial amount of money left for him. Tim did set him and his mom up pretty well. He was an only child and he was struggling. He decided to go around the world and document his story on how he processed the death of his father and what he gained in each country, how he came out of it in the end. He showed up here in Palm Springs to talk about his book, to discuss what he was going through in more depth when he wrote it, where the concept came from, all of that. And it was really, really good. I didn't get a chance to get a photo with him because I had a prior engagement. This is a book. Definitely go out and get this book. It's a great read. I found to be very inspirational. For me, the best parts of the book was his mother. I loved her spirit, how he portrayed her in the book. She was a mother's mother. And she even said to him at one point, when are you going to get your life together? You're traveling to all these countries, you're not doing anything with yourself. Like, when do you get it together? Like, she stayed on him. And then she also went on some of his trips with him. So I loved their interaction. Typical mom son interaction. They argued a bit. They didn't see eye to eye, but it was really, really good. I really appreciated him sharing that story. When I met him, I appreciated him being able to tell the story in such a way that he pretty much shared a lot of what he was feeling with us. And you don't find that at often. You could still hear the pain even when he talked. I mean, I could still hear the pain in his voice. It was really traumatic for him what happened. And now that your father's gone and everybody's expecting you to be him, well, I'm Luke. I'm Luke. I'm not Tim. One of the things that I do remember in the book that I love that his mother said, she told him, if you're going to travel to all of these countries, anything you want of luxury, buy it out there because it would mean more than buying it in America. And that was so true. For one, it was cheaper. For another, it was an experience, you know? So you're getting a better buy. And every time you look at that item, whether it's something you're wearing or something you're putting around as home decor in your home, it has a story behind it. Okay, the next book we're going to talk about is another autobiography that I kind of fell into. Let's talk about that next. You remember Sinead O'Connor? Sinead O'Connor had a song out. You know her song. I know this song. Well, it's crazy because I heard it on the radio a couple of days ago. And I'm in my library of my book and it pops up. And I'm like, at first, I didn't know who she was because she's aged. She's like my age. She's aged a lot. And then I was like, oh, yeah. Echo. What was Sinead O'Connor's famous song? Nothing Compares to You. You remember that?
The singer Sinead O'Connor is famous for the song Nothing Compares to You, which was written by Prince and was a hit worldwide in 1990.
In 1990, and it was written by Prince. Let me tell you, the book, I did it in audio form, and she was the narrator. It was so good. It was so good. Listen, there's a part in there where Prince does some crazy-ish to her, and I was like, what? Prince? Little Short Prince? No. Gotta get that book. I prefer the audio. When she read her account of what was going on in her life, you could hear it. You can still hear the pain till this day. But Prince did some shady stuff to her, and I did not know he wrote Nothing Compares to You. But that, back in the 90s, that was my back in the 90s. I love that song. But anyway, the book. Let me just say, caught me off guard. Caught me off guard. I always wonder what happened to her after that. And she was still singing, but in another country. She wasn't singing out here. And she never really wanted to sing. She wanted to sing, don't get me wrong. I take that back. She didn't want to be famous. She didn't want people following her around. She didn't want people to know where she lived. She didn't want to be famous. She just wanted to be a singer. And you couldn't do one without the other. So she left America and went to another country. If you listen to some of her music, it's painful. Sort of like when Prince did Purple Rain. Remember the song about his mother and how she was crazy or whatever? If you listen to Sinead O'Connor's songs, you could hear the pain. Honey, her mother treated her so bad. She got into so much trouble as a child. They used to have to steal for their mother. They went days without eating, and when they did eat, they had to, when I say they, her and her brothers, I can't remember how many brothers and sisters she had. They stole the food that they ate, they stole the clothes that they wore, all on the account of her mother. Like the mother encouraged this. She brutally beat Sinead with ornaments. I mean, her brother, she brutally beat her brother. They lived a really, really bad life, and it was so sad. I'm listening to her narrate this story, and I'm crying, like literally bawling. I didn't know. And now that makes sense when you listen to some of her music. That was a really good book. It was unexpected, but like I said, I always like an autobiography because you never know what someone's story is, how they got to where they got, and she didn't even want to be there. Like she didn't even want to be. But the Prince, I keep going back to the Prince. If you don't do nothing, get that book and read the part that Prince played. He not here, so he can't defend himself. But I don't know. I don't know. I kind of think what she said was true now because Prince and her were under the same label. And he did write that song, Nothing Compares to You, that she sang. So there you have it. There are two more books that I need to talk about. And it's going to be a wrap for reads, reviews, and recommendations. Okay, so I am back, refreshed, got something to eat. I got one more book. I thought I had two, but this is actually the eighth book. So I read a total of 8 books. So we started with 50 Cents. We went over to Jennifer Lewis, and then Yvonne Orji. I Am Debra Lee. We talked about The Celebrants. Look for Me There. Luke Russert and Sinead O'Connor. We talked about her book. So it's a total of 8 books. The last book I read was a book called Bevelations by Bevy Smith. This was so good. It reminded me a little bit of Jennifer Lewis, but that Bevy Smith, she is funny. She is hilarious. It's called Bevelations, and it's about her start in the business and how she got there, what happened, about her journey along the way. But this is the book, Bevelations. So basically, it's lessons from mother, auntie, bestie, and trust me when I tell you, she has some lessons for you. She talked about how she struggled in the business because she couldn't get work. And when she did, she didn't really get paid a whole lot. So she figured it out in terms of money, what she was going to eat, what she was going to buy, and she stretched it. She just made it work. She kept her focus. She kept praying. She stayed on her path and she went through her journey. And it was a lot, but it was really, really good. And she's talking about it in this autobiography. She is the narrator. She's going to tell you a story. It's funny. It's funny. It's hilarious. Some of it will have you shaking your head, but listen, like Jennifer Lewis, if y'all a little sensitive to certain type of language, you're not gonna like this because Bevy ain't holding back. You hear me? Bevy gonna tell you like it is then and now. It's her book, and she wrote her account of it. So maybe you should get the written form, because if you gotta hear it through audio, you might not like it. So how long is this book? 8 hours and 25 minutes. That's how long this book was. I think it took me 2 days to get through it. It's really good though. Don't let hours of a book scare you, especially an autobiography, because they pretty much go quickly. I know the ones that I've read have pretty much gone really, really well. Let's start with Evolution of a Grown Ass Woman. What she was talking about was, you want to secure the bag, do the work. How much explanation do you need? That says it all. You want to secure the bag, do the work. She talks about that in her Evolution of a Grown Ass Woman chapter. Then she has another chapter called Do the Work. And in that chapter, she talks about, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. That used to be my saying. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. She talks about, now that you're doing the work, make it make sense. She also talked about how sometimes a job is just a job with a paycheck. A paycheck can offer a stepping stone. And all she's saying is, sometimes you have to take that job just to get to the next stepping stone. You may not want it, you might not like it, but sometimes this is going to lead you to your ultimate goal, but you got to go this way to get there. Remember I said before, we can't always see it. Back to the 50 cents. Don't be fearful to get to what you can't see, because if you prayed for it, you're going to get it. It's just not going to look the way you think it's going to look, but that don't mean you're not getting there. See, I'm just amazed how all my books are tying together. She also talks about knowing the difference between working for praise, working for connections, working for emotional investment. They're all different. In this chapter, she's telling you to roll with the flow for the season that you're in. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes I forget that. And I have to remind myself, just go with the flow of things. She read the book, The Four Agreements. I still have not had a chance to read that. But if you read it, you know what she's talking about. She talks about how that influenced a lot of the decisions that she made. What else did she talk about? She talked about, in order to grow, you have to be uncomfortable. We're learning that more and more every day. In order to grow, you're going to have to be uncomfortable. Comfortability is complacency, period. So if you want to grow, you want to evolve, you got to prepare to be uncomfortable, baby. It is what it is. Another chapter, she talked about how people want you to co-sign on what they believe, but they really don't want your opinion. And that's so true. That's so true. What else? All money ain't good money. We know that, right? She talked about that in her Broke and Blissful chapter. If you take money from the wrong people, hello, credit cards, banks, those get quick cash loans and schemes that they got out here, you're going to end up owing more. And that's so true. So she talked about that. There was another chapter she talked about quitting should be your last resort. So exhaust everything in your aura, everything, before you give up and quit. She just followed her dreams and she stuck with it, and it wasn't all uphill. She had some really low points in her life, but to hear her account of it and how she got through, it was just really amazing. I love the book. Here's her book. Get her book. I enjoyed it. It was good, but like I said, she can be vulgar. Yeah, honey, she can be vulgar. Hey. So on that note, I'm going to end this vlog for my book reads, reviews, and recommendations. Bye. I need some wine. The wrap.
up my appetite. Don't leave me here